Hi everybody, happy Tuesday. This week's tutorial we're going to be looking at using your irons for styling your hair. Now as you can see, I've washed and dried my hair, but it's not quite as polished, quite as refined as I'd like it to be. So I'm going to be going in and using these. A little bit of advice before we start. You want to make sure that you're maintaining your appliances well. So sometimes you can get a little bit of product build-up on the edge of the plates. You just want to make sure that obviously when the straighteners are turned off and they're cold, that you clean any excess, any sort of gungy bits that have built up on the sides, just so you can reduce that friction on your hair and obviously you're not transferring it back. So I'm going to be using my Cloud9 original irons. These are the ones that we use in the salon, and we've used Cloud9s now for well over a decade, and I've got no reason to want to change them. They're absolutely brilliant. They do come in this size, the wider ones. You can get the micro irons, which are a lot smaller, and the touch irons, which are the same size as this, but they haven't got the variable temperature control, and they don't quite get as hot. Now straighteners or irons have come a long way. Obviously when they first came out, people did refer to them as straighteners, and a lot of people still do. But in the industry, they're now more referred to as styling irons, because what you can achieve with them, it goes far beyond just straightening. When they first came out, it was, I think it was a case of they probably got to 100 degrees and you probably had to put water in them because they were steam powered, whereas now they get a lot hotter. They come with such like your mineral infused plates, floating plates that move with your hair to again reduce friction, keep your hair in the best condition. But obviously, bearing that in mind, it's still a lot of heat on your hair. So although before I blow dried it, I did go in with my Cloud9 Magical Potion, I'm also going to use my Paul Mitchell hot off the press spray, just for that bit of added protection before we go in with the irons. So what you want to be doing with your Paul Mitchell hot off the press spray is just spray that liberally all over the hair. You can either do it, depending on your hairstyle, you can either do it in one go at the beginning, or as you go up each section, just say spray over, give it a nice comb through, just to make sure it's got a little bit of extra protection. It's really lightweight, it's not going to clog up your hair, but it will, say, just give that extra peace of mind for when you're using your hot irons. So first things first, we're going to section off the hair. So we're going to go in sort of just behind the ears, using the fingers straight into the middle. Clip that up out of the way. Okay, and as I do a lot of the time, I'm styling my hair, so I split it down the middle and bring it over each shoulder so you can see what you're doing. So let's turn the straighteners on. You hear that little beep to let you know that power is on. So the technique we're going to be using, showing your hair, is sort of go in with our comb and then following, I'm not going to put it on yet, but following the comb down like this. So your comb is getting rid of any knots and giving you that control, and then your straight is going down. And what we want to be doing is kind of going over slow and steady and controlled, and hopefully you only need to go over once, maybe twice. A lot of mistakes people make is they'll go in really quickly over and over again, and that's far too much damage and far too much friction on your hair. Obviously my hair is quite smooth anyway, so if I wanted to keep some body in my hair, I wouldn't necessarily go right in from the root. I could just go in sort of like a couple of inches away from the root and go down to the ends, just to keep that bit of oomph. If you've got quite curly hair or frizzy hair, you need to be going right up to the root, and this is where it would be an advantage for you to take smaller sections. If you're taking a big section sort of so deep and trying to clamp your straighteners around it, you're not going to get the control right from the root. So you still get, that's where you're going to end up with still kinks at the root and then smoother straighter down. So they're heated up now. So if we go in with the comb, follow down with the straighteners. And what you want to do is say slow and steady, and then just as you come to the end, just slightly bend your straighteners under a bit. And what that will do is give that nice, more professional finish. I remember when I was just starting out using straighteners, and a lot of people do this, sort of go down the hair, and just as they get to the end, they either let the straighteners go or without realising it, kick out. And if you've got layered hair, you'll find that all your ends are showing and all the layers are starting to kick out, and that is what gives the slightly rougher look, shall we say, and not more polished and not so professional. So, yeah, so as you go get to the ends, just do it once more to show you. Just follow the comb down and just a slight bend under. Just say tuck those ends under and keep it nice and professional looking. Now if I come to the other side, I'll show you a slight difference. If we just bend the hair under a little bit more, you can just create a little bit more movement and almost like a more bouncy look. So if you just bend the hair under a little bit more, you can see. So that side we've got more sleek look. That side, just by bending those ends in, it's still nice and smooth, but just by flicking those ends under, you've created instantly a bit more bounce. And if you imagine if you'd followed that up the hair, you'd create a far more bouncy, more well, a different look to this side. So, next section, I'm gonna go sort of slightly just above the ears. Okay, open that up. Okay, you want to make sure that all your hair is kind of knot free before we start. So otherwise you don't want to be kind of going through with your comb, following your straighteners, finding a knot, and then your straighteners on your hair longer than you want them to be. Because what you want to keep is a nice, constant, steady flow through the hair. If you stop anywhere, that's where you're going to end up with sort of like lines in your hair where the straighteners have stopped. So again, come down, just a slight tuck under, just to keep those ends in. Okay, if we look at the other side, so we'll do it slightly different, just so you can see. So go under, and then just bend it under a bit more, and just see a little bit more bounce, a little bit more detail on the ends. Like that. Now obviously when it comes to doing the back of your hair, again, like we did with the blow drying tutorial a couple of weeks ago, it's like we're working out a bit of a workout for the arms. Comb in first. You can always go so far, and once you kind of lose a bit of stretch on the arms, then bring it round to the sides, and again, just come under like that. It always helps if you've got a mirror on your wall and then like a freestanding mirror, which I'm using. And what you can do is have the mirror on the wall in front of you, and then if you were to turn round and use the mirror like that, you can see the back of your head a bit more, and then you've got a bit more control over what you're doing. Or if you've got, you know, your husband, your dad, your mum, your sister, your friend, they can always tell you if you've missed bits. Now that we've moved up a section, I'm going to show you how to do a slightly different look, more of a almost like crimped, sort of beachy type look with your irons. So take a small section, you want to go in to the roots and then rock it up, down, still keeping them clamped all the way down, just steady, still keep them moving, back and forth. And see what that does is just creates a nice wave to this front section. Obviously if you were to stretch that out a bit, like longer strokes, you have a softer look. I suppose the more creases there. Try and do a really little one. Again, if you can imagine that all throughout the hair, and then put some product in, you'd end up with quite a nice sort of rough, beachy, tussled look, which is quite nice and very easy to achieve. Now this waving technique I find is really good. If you wanted to curl your hair, but if your hair's quite thick or if it's quite short and you find that your hair goes really big, for these underneath layers, I find that this waving technique is really, really useful because you're still creating that movement, but you're not necessarily creating much width to your hair, so you're still sort of in keeping with a look, but you're not ending up with your hair out here. So say if you've got really thick hair that you want it to curl, or say short hair where your underneath layers are only so long, you can just give it a little rock and it'll just create that little bit of bend in the hair just to keep that style. This side, I'm going to show you more of how to do a bit more of a curl with the irons, just spray that side. Again, a small piece of hair. Now there's a few different options to this. Either go in with your straighteners, bend and slide down again, steady. So create that nice bit of wave. Or you can go in from the top, again, turn and move down. Right. Or you've got the option, rather than going in sort of vertically with our straighteners, we can go in horizontally and turn. That creates a bit more of a tighter curl. Okay, we'll move up, I'll show you that again. Take a section of hair, a bit of spray. Go in, turn your straighteners, or irons should I say. Bring it down. Okay. Next section, so go in from the top. I'm trying to do this without looking in the mirror. Or there's the option of, say, going in horizontally and rotating. It's just going to be a case of practicing and becoming comfortable, working. See, that one's a bit more glam, a bit more 60s-ish. Yeah, so as you can see, I've gone back through and smoothed my hair out with my irons, following the technique, as I say, of slightly tucking those ends under just to give it a more polished, more professional, more groomed look. If you are straightening your hair with your irons and you find that you want to keep going over an area at the ends because it's looking frizzy, at that point it is time to get your hair cut. No amount of going over your hair with your irons is going to undo the damage of split ends. You're just going to be creating more and more damage and they're just going to get frizzier and frizzier. So at that point you do need to get your hair cut. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial and you can take on board some of the advice I've given you. Look after yourselves, stay safe, and we'll be back next week with more hints and tips and tricks of the trade. Until then, bye.